Due to a failing nose gear, JetBlue Flight 292 between Burbank and New York City had to make an emergency landing. JetBlue Aircraft 292 had to make an emergency landing at Los Angeles International Airport on September 21, 2005. What happened? Why did the plane have to make an emergency landing? All will be answered in this video, but you have to watch it completely. Hello and welcome to Plane Crashes Explained, where we discuss the most mind-blowing reasons and facts behind the most heinous plane crashes. Subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon so you won't miss future updates. Without further ado, let's get straight into this. JetBlue Trip 292 was a scheduled flight from Burbank, California's Bob Hope Airport to New York City's John F. Kennedy International Airport. After the nose gear became stuck in an abnormal position, Captain Scott Burke of the Airbus A320-200 made an emergency landing at Los Angeles International Airport on September 21, 2005. There were no injuries. On September 21, 2005, 140 passengers and 6 flight crew members boarded the plane for the scheduled voyage. The Airbus took off from Burbank Airport at 3:17 on its way to New York, covering 2,500 miles in the process. During the initial takeoff, the first officer of JetBlue Flight 292 noticed no problems with the aircraft. The National Transportation Safety Board, NTSB, also confirmed that the plane was climbing at a good clip and that everything was proceeding well. After only a few minutes in the air, the flight crew was alerted to an error warning on the Electric Centralized Aircraft Monitor ECAM panel. The flying crew could not retract the nose landing gear. The pilot then discussed the matter with the flight crew, and the first officer of JetBlue Flight 292 flew over Palmdale. However, it soon became clear that the airplane would not make it all the way to New York. After circling Southern California for hours, the JetBlue flight crew decided to divert the airplane to Long Beach. JetBlue Flight 292's pilot chose to make a pass of the tower for visual confirmation of the aircraft's outside section with the flight control officer. The endeavor paid off when a local news helicopter and a JetBlue flight control officer at the tower spotted that the nose landing gear had canted 90 degrees to the left. With this knowledge, the JetBlue Flight 292 captain chose to park the plane at Los Angeles International Airport rather than return to Burbank. The pilot chose Los Angeles International Airport for the emergency landing because the airport had ideal field conditions, long runways, and stronger emergency support services. All that was left for JetBlue Flight 292 was to reach the optimum landing weight to touch down, so they circled over Southern California to do it. The Airbus plane circled Long Beach Airport, which is 30 miles south of Burbank's Bob Hope Airport. JetBlue Flight 292 continued in the air for 3 hours to burn off the extra fuel and reach a safe landing weight. While everyone prayed for a safe landing for JetBlue Flight 292, the 140 passengers on board streamed live news from the plane that was circling around their life-or-death predicament. The aircraft was tuned to news broadcasts because of the satellite TV set on board. Everyone received information about their predicament from a variety of sources. When the commotion began, people began to fear and scream as they watched their flight on live television. In such circumstances, everyone is terrified of what may happen. However, the situation could have been much calmer if the crew and passengers stuck within the plane had been given live coverage. Passengers who were able to keep their composure in that situation attempted calling and texting their loved ones to console them in the event of a worse outcome. The plane landing was aired live until a few minutes before touchdown on the JetBlue Flight 292 monitors. Officials at the Los Angeles International Airport, LAX, expected and prepared for the emergency landing of JetBlue Flight 292 2 hours before the plane arrived after the flight crew decided to land there. At 6:18 p.m., the plane carrying 140 passengers and 6 crew members on way to John F. Kennedy International Airport, which took off from Bob Hope Airport, made a safe emergency landing at LAX. The decision of JetBlue Flight 292 pilot Scott Burke to make an emergency landing at LAX saved the problem from becoming worse. None of the 146 passengers and crew members on board were injured. The touchdown took place on LAX's southernmost runway 25 left, with smoke and fire billowing from the plane's front landing gear before it came to a safe stop. The landing of JetBlue Flight 292 was delayed due to the aircraft's inability to dump fuel. The pilot had to circle in the area for hours before achieving the safe landing weight, even though officials at LAX were ready over 2 hours before the Airbus A320 plane landed at 6:18 p.m. Nancy Castles, a spokeswoman for LAX, said that the airport was told of the approach of JetBlue Flight 292 at 5:08 p.m. on September 21st, but that officials were aware of the situation and had prepared for the likelihood of the jet arriving before being notified. After watching live news of the incident at around 4 p.m., the official began emergency landing preparations. Officials at LAX were 98% certain that JetBlue Aircraft 292 was on its way to the airport for an emergency landing. At 4:15 p.m., airport officials at LAX began informing personnel about the anticipated emergency landing of the JetBlue flight. Even though the airport had received no formal warning regarding the aircraft's landing destination, they began preparing resources. More than 10 units from the surrounding fire stations were deployed on the airfield to respond to the emergency landing of JetBlue Flight 292, including the 2 City of Los Angeles Fire Department stations on the airport's airfield, the airport's initial emergency responders. To reduce the number of possible casualties, the Los Angeles Police Department, LAPD, and the Los Angeles Airport Police Department, LAAPD, collaborated to put up a perimeter around the airport and the surrounding streets. Nearly 130 law enforcement officers were on hand at LAX's airfield, with more on standby if the plane had to make an emergency landing. When JetBlue Flight 292 landed, all personnel from various agencies were there on the airstrip, ready to assist the passengers. Officials at LAX had analyzed every possible consequence of the plane's landing, from a fatal accident to the plane overshooting and landing in the ocean. Assistant Chief of the City Fire Department Roy Kazaki stated that the personnel at the airport were prepared for any possible outcome of the situation. The Assistant Chief also stated that Coast Guard boats had been deployed to the surrounding waters near the airport in case an aircraft overshot and landed on the ocean. The passengers were deplaned through the Airbus's stairway once the plane landed on the 25 left runway at LAX. Because there was no fire during the stop, there was no need for emergency evacuation. After a rough landing at LAX, the NTSB initiated an inquiry into the event, and the Airbus plane was transferred to the Continental Airlines maintenance area. The National Transportation Safety Board revealed that the JetBlue aircraft's nose wheel assembly had damaged and split anti-rotation lugs. 2 of the upper support assembly's 4 anti-rotation lugs had shattered and split from the support assembly, and the other 2 lugs exhibited cracks. According to federal data, the Airbus A320 aircraft had at least 3 and maybe 6 comparable accidents when the nose landing gears rotated sideways, precisely as JetBlue Flight 292. All of those events had issues with the front landing gear, and the NTSB looked at the similarities between those aircraft's nose landing gear incident and the JetBlue incident. Following that, Airbus issued an operations engineering bulletin with technical details on resetting the in-flight brake steering control unit, which controls the nose landing gear. On March 6, 2021, Batik Air Flight 6803 from Jambi to Jakarta, which was also operated by an A320-214, had an incident identical to Flight 292 in which the gear slid sideways. The plane landed safely and all passengers and crew members were unharmed. Similarly, LATAM Flight 4292, a scheduled flight from Medellin to Cartagena, was operated by an Airbus A320-214 on March 29, 2022. The crew was notified of a suspected landing gear fault as the flight was ascending to its cruising altitude. With its nose landing gear jammed horizontally, the plane returned to Medellin for an emergency landing. None of the 147 people on board were hurt. Poor examination of an airplane and inexperience of an airplane's crew has always been the cause of the disaster. If airport security is a little bit vigilant and if the airplane is thoroughly examined, so many accidents can be avoided. What do you think? Let us know in the comments section. That's all for today. If you found this video interesting, give us a thumbs up and don't forget to share the video with your friends and family. Thank you for watching the video.